Katsuki Bakugo is introduced as a hostile, hot-headed, unapologetic, narcissistic, arrogant, stubborn, egotistical, loudmouth bully with anger issues that could destroy a city block. And despite this, he is the most popular character in My Hero Academia. And it's not an opinion, it's a fact of life. The same character who told Deku to do a swanton bomb off a building and pray that
you'll be born with a quirk in your next life
is the most beloved person in the series. He's won the popularity poll 9 times in a row. What is it about Bakugo that makes people not only tolerate his explosive personality, but actually adore him? Why does everybody love Bakugo, including you? But before I answer that question, let's talk about why so many people dislike Bakugo in the first place. And it's plain and simple because he's a dickhead. Like, I can't say anything else besides he's a dickhead. Like, only a dickhead will tell somebody,
you know, if you really want to be a hero that badly, there actually might be another way. Just pray that you'll be born with a quirk in your next life and take a swan dive off the roof of the building.
Bakugo is established as somebody the crowd should hate. In fact, he's downright unredeemable in some viewers' eyes. But that's the point. Because despite Bakugo being a complete jerk, he displays qualities that can be seen as admirable. Bakugo's heroism is undeniable because he doesn't do it simply for the love of the game.
I am the game.
Katsuki Bakugo has all of the traits to be a great hero. He embodies intensity, whether it's cooking, cleaning, training, brushing his teeth, it doesn't matter. Katsuki Bakugo gives 110% maximum effort. He embodies integrity. After his loss to Team Deku in the battle trials, he learns to give his opponents respect for their abilities, because the last time he didn't, he lost. And during the fight with Uraraka, despite the audience's judgment of Bakugo, he sees her as an equal. Yes, Bakugo has a very aggressive nature, but he never lies and truly believes the words that he says. And as he matures, he takes accountability for the actions he makes in the past. He embodies intelligence. Bakugo not only trained his body, but he trained his mind to think above the average human. He's a top 3 smartest student at UA. He displays a high level of battle IQ. Bakugo displays a high level of intelligence throughout the entire series. But unfortunately, he doesn't really invest any points into emotional intelligence. Despite being blessed with an amazing quirk, Bakugo still fights tooth and nail and pushes himself to be the best that he can every day. In my honest opinion, Katsuki Bakugo is the perfect character for My Hero, simply down to the fact that his character embodies everything great about the series. Like, his favorite hobby is rock climbing, despite the fact that he can fly, making the task meaningless. It's a small detail, but this means that Bakugo loves challenging himself. He doesn't like taking the easy way out. That screams so much about his character. Every aspect of his character design, his name, his quirk, his hero costume, is phenomenally designed to create the most well-constructed character Horikoshi has ever made. Starting with his name, Katsuki Bakugo, which is a combination of his parents' name, which when you translate it to English, it means to make victory your identity. But then you have his family name, Bakugo, which means great explosion. And when you put it all together, it means great victory explosion. No wonder he developed a superiority complex and tries to be the best at everything he does. To be the best is a part of his identity. The same as his quirk, which in the world of My Hero, your quirk is heavily tied to your identity. Your quirk will heavily influence your personality. Katsuki Bakugo's superpower, aka quirk, is explosion. Explosion allows the user to excrete nitroglycerin like sweat from their palms and ignite it at will to create explosions of various sizes, which perfectly describes Bakugo as a person. It explains his personality and why he has such a explosive personality.
Oh, brother!
This quirk is etched into his personality, his name, his identity. But his quirk also fueled his pride. And I would be very prideful if I had this quirk too. It's a versatile quirk allowing for mobility, ranged attacks, and massive AoE blast. With that big brain of his, he developed stun grenade, AP shot autocannon, machine gun, howitzer impact, self-detonating explosions. He can shoot explosions from his mouth. Bakugo has evolved his quirk to its absolute peak, and he does all of this damage while looking this fly. I mean, his military themed costume is already pretty obvious. I mean, the green and orange aesthetic, but just look at him. Stylish, Glock Tuck, big t-shirt, Billie Eilish. It's not just flashy, it's also very functional. Every single part of his hero costume is designed to kill. His grenadier bracers store all of his sweat, allowing for a concentrated blast that is so powerful it can pierce concrete and dislocate your shoulder. And when he goes on the stealth mission, he exchanges those grenadier bracers for flashbangs, because you know,
But when I get fucking flashed, it's like some big brolic black dude named fucking Raquise pulled a fucking bed sheet over the head of my head and just proceeds to skull fuck.
I mean, I don't really know how you're gonna sneak up on somebody when your power is explosions. I mean, it's not like he has to sneak up on you. He can whip out the Strafe Panzer. Yeah, they all store his sweat and they all do damage. And look at the name, Strafe Panzer. The word Panzer is also German for tank. And grenadier bracers, let's go back to that, that's also a role in the military. Bakugo also has these mini hand grenades that also store his sweat, but he can also give them to his teammates so they can use them as like regular grenades. And even his knee pads, guess what they do? They deliver the nastiest V-triggers you have ever seen. Horikoshi's attention to detail is evident in every facet of Bakugo's design, from his name to his busted quirk that is complemented by his costume and explosive personality. Everything coalesces into a character that's both complex, captivating, and great to look at. Like, come on, if you made it this far in the video and you're a Bakugo hater, you at least gotta admit, he got that shit on though. Like you can't deny it. He got it on. And while I've spent this entire video glazing how perfect of a character Bakugo is, his main appeal is stemming from the writing that's behind him. Katsuki isn't simply a character. He's written like a human, like an onion, with layers that you have to peel back to truly grasp. At the start of the series, the audience is meant to view Bakugo as a villain, but the only reason why he's acting like this to begin with is because he spent his entire life living in a lie. Due to the environment around him, Katsuki's self-perception was warped to view himself as superior. But no character would be as influential on young Dynamite but the symbol of peace, All Might, who would rise to the top thanks to his overwhelming power. Katsuki saw this as the only way to win. He viewed getting help as something to be ashamed of. So when a young Midoriya tries to help Bakugo, even though he is quirkless, he sees that as a slap in the face to his strength. You're disrespecting his identity. And the same thing happened with the sludge villain. And when Deku tried to save him, he had his pride, his identity disrespected. This moment was a catalyst for the change that Bakugo needed, and his worldview would be further challenged when he got to UA, seeing that everyone there is just as good as him and he was simply a big fish in a small pond. Students like Momo, Shoto, and Ida outperformed Bakugo on the training field and the classroom. But the first major crack in Bakugo's spirit would come during the battle trial test, where for the first time ever, Deku would defeat Bakugo. Sure, Bakugo won the physical battle, but Deku won the test and held out for way longer than he should have. That's the first sign that Bakugo's world is about to fall apart. Because for the first time ever, Bakugo is asking questions. Is Bakugo who he actually thought he was? Is he as good as he said he was? Bakugo's identity and nature makes failure unnatural to him. And ironically, that's the one thing you need to grow as a person, to get better. And this growth is shown as in the next arc when the villains invade USJ. Bakugo is seen teaming up with Kirishima, who would end up being his day one homie, his tag team partner. In the last arc with the battle trial, Bakugo refused to team up with Ida, so him teaming up with another student is him showing growth. The sports festival continued Bakugo's growth as he teamed up with Mina, Sero, and Kirishima for the cavalry battle. Despite him being a typical DPS, flying off on his own, trying to 1v4 the entire enemy team, Bakugo showcases a high level of intelligence and leadership by taking advantage of his team's special skill sets. And then, when it got down to the actual tournament, Bakugo takes each match seriously. He analyzes and acknowledges each of his opponents as a threat, as they wouldn't be standing across the ring from him if they weren't capable of being the #1 hero themselves. And no battle showcases this more than his battle with Uraraka. The spectators watching the match treated Bakugo as a villain because of how he was acting during the fight. They thought he was toying with her, but that's quite the opposite. You see, Bakugo is a true feminist, first of all. He believes in equal rights and lefts, and he knew Uraraka was the furthest thing from fragile. He played it safe and treated her as an actual threat to his spot to the throne. The same grace he did not provide to Deku. But this growth in Bakugo's character is the exact reason why he crashed out on Shoto, because to Bakugo, Shoto's reluctance to use his fire side, the same fire he used on Deku, was a sign of disrespect, not only to Bakugo as a person, but it further proved what Bakugo knew all along, that Deku has something that he doesn't. It explains why Shoto declared war on Midoriya alone at the start of the festival. You see, Deku has something that makes him worthy of being graced by Shoto's flames, and Bakugo lacks that something, which is why he got the cold shoulder. And after the sports festival, Bakugo is hired by Best Jeanist. Though he initially resisted this, he does not want to do this. His relationship with Best Jeanist grew so much over the series that by the end of it, Best Jeanist was the only hero that he wanted to tell his name to first. During the final exams, Principal Nezu explains that the students will be facing off against the teachers, and Bakugo is shocked to find out that he and Deku are going to be teaming up and taking on the greatest of all time from West Newbury, Massachusetts, All Might in the main event. And Bakugo wants to fight and Deku wants to run. And even after All Might did all that with the handcuffs on, Bakugo still refused to accept Deku's help. At one point, even saying that he would rather lose than get help from Deku, and that was until Deku knocked some sense into him.
Don't you dare say that you'd rather lose! Let's win this, Kanchan!
So, reluctantly, Bakugo teams up with Deku, even at one point willing to sacrifice himself as he throws Deku towards the exit, staying behind to take on All Might and getting face-palmed immediately.
I'll keep fighting. I'll break myself. Even if there's nothing left of me, I will win the way I want to. I'll destroy myself before I accept defeat at your hands!
Bakugo bites All Might's hand in an act of defiance. This short tag team run with Deku has forced Bakugo to confront his flaws in his mentality. Young Bakugo has realized his toxic pride and reluctance to change is what's gonna hold him back from being the #1 hero. He has to make a change, and he has to do it now. Otherwise, he's gonna be left behind. But this is 15 years of a bad mentality learned up and instilled within Bakugo's character. You can't just unlearn that within a couple of weeks. Which is why when Bakugo got kidnapped by the League of Villains, he told Deku to stay back, even though he knows he needs his help to survive. He hasn't had that time to change. But even when he was kidnapped by the League of Villains, Bakugo refuses Shigaraki's offer to join them because he wants to win like his idol All Might, proving that despite his aggressive nature, he has an unyielding desire to be a hero. This moment was another major turning point for Bakugo's popularity in real life, because most people saw him as a Sasuke clone, and during this kidnapped arc, he would end up being a part of the villains. It was the perfect time for him to turn heel, but no, Horikoshi threw us a curveball. But the thing is that we saw him wind up this curveball. We knew it was coming. Bakugo was never going to be a part of the League of Villains. So All Might comes to the rescue. Bakugo is able to escape thanks to the help of his tag team partner, Kirishima, while All Might stays behind and lays belt to ass to All For One once again, but at the cost of his remaining one for all embers. Meaning Bakugo's rescue was the very end of All Might. With the provisional license here, Bakugo knows he needs to step up his game. Bakugo attempted to emulate Deku's way of heroism by attempting to save civilians during the provisional license exam, and this will turn out to be the worst decision of his life as he would end up failing. Instead, during this test, Katsuki should have stuck to his bread and butter and been the first person to attack Gang Orca. This heartbreak was a wake-up call. This realization that Bakugo is a failure led to him letting out his emotions in the only way he knew how.
Meet me out front later. We need to have a talk about your quirk.
Deku vs. Bakugo was the moment that most My Hero fans became Bakugo fans. The battle takes place at Ground Zero, where Deku defeated Bakugo at the start of the manga, where the first crack of Bakugo appeared. His idol chose Deku as his successor. Bakugo just wants to know what Midoriya has that he doesn't. And you can feel the anger and sadness with each strike, each explosion Bakugo threw. You know he has something to say, he just can't bring himself to say it until he lets it out.
Why did I end up having to chase after someone who was always so far behind me? Why did a damn small fry like you get strong and become the #1 hero's sidekick? You got so much better, and I destroyed All Might! I admired him so much, but it's because of me that he ended up losing his power! I can't get it out of my head! It's like it's constantly playing on loop! So what the hell am I supposed to do?
Katsuki's breakdown reminded the audience that this is a teenager, a young man who still doesn't have a full grasp of himself or the world around him yet. We have seen Katsuki as a trouble child for so long that we forget to mention that he is a trouble child. But most importantly, he admits his hatred for Deku is built upon his own insecurity, believing Deku to be looking down on him, when in reality, it's quite the opposite. Midoriya aspires to be like Bakugo. He sees him as amazing, as a symbol of victory, and that's why he keeps chasing after Kacchan. That's why these two are perfect rivals. They constantly cause each other to grow, chasing each other. But in order to grow to their full potential, they must learn from each other because they are both two sides of the same All Might. Save to win and win to save. But after this fight, Bakugo now vows to surpass Midoriya, finally realizing that accepting strength in others does not diminish your own. He also displays this same trait during the school festival arc, the gentle criminal arc, where he's a drummer in the band, and yeah, he doesn't really play a role, but the fact that he's performing in that band, and the fact that that band went on to make Eri smile, goes to show him that saving, being the #1 hero, is not about throwing punches. But then we get to the remedial course arc, where Bakugo showcases his ability to save to win by winning over the hearts of the toddlers, earning his provisional license. Then we get to the joint training arc, where Bakugo is the highlight, and his growth is the reason why his team gets a perfect 4-0. My man was moving like prime LeBron, working in perfect unison with his team. Bakugo hasn't changed. He wants to be #1 hero, but the method to get there requires him to rely on others. Something he learned from Deku. Also, during the Heroes Rising movie, my man Bakugo uses the X catapult to launch Deku, which looks absolutely amazing and showcases that he is a team player. Then we see Bakugo decides to choose Endeavor's agency for his work study, which is very vital for him to grow. Because not only is Endeavor the reigning #1 hero, but Endeavor is also somebody that Bakugo shares a lot of similarities with, and somebody he could absolutely end up growing up to be if he doesn't learn his mistakes now. But Bakugo's only at the agency to figure out one thing.
I showed up to figure out what will make me even better, to surpass you.
He wants to know what he's lacking, and by the end of the arc, after saving Natsuo first, before fighting, Bakugo finally understands what he is lacking, but he doesn't have the instinct to act upon it. That is until the next arc. And then we get to the Paranormal Liberation War arc, where Bakugo plays a crucial role in the hero's eventual stalemate with the villains. He's mainly there to do a couple licks on Shigaraki, but right as Deku is about to get stabbed, Bakugo's body moves on its own to save Deku, on instinct. Not only does this save prevent world domination for All For One, but it means something for Bakugo.
There are stories about every hero, how they became great. Most have one thing in common. Their bodies moved before they had a chance to think, almost on their own.
Finally, Bakugo has become a true hero worthy of surpassing All Might, and even Deku. He has finally become a real hero, which is fitting for him because in this same arc he also reveals to Best Jeanist his hero name. Finally, Bakugo has earned the right to call himself the hero, Great Explosion Murder God Dynamite. And after the war, Deku leaves UA to function alone, burdened with the responsibility of wielding One for All. In order to take down All for One and Shigaraki, Deku is now faced with the reality that he must do it alone. I mean, nobody else is powerful enough to even step up to these two. They're gonna get hurt or killed. Bakugo and Class 1A know that Deku has saved them all and it's time for them to repay the favor, and they go out to search for him. And Bakugo's apology to Midoriya was long overdue, and we finally got it during this rescue. It came at an appropriate time for both characters because Bakugo fully admits his awful behaviors and way of thinking. He admits that winning on your own is not the right way to win, no matter how strong you are. It never made sense to Bakugo. He was praised for being strong his whole life. He believed that he could do it on his own. And despite Deku being quirkless, he still kept chasing after Bakugo. So Bakugo bullied him and tried to act superior. He didn't like how Deku kept trying to chase after him despite being powerless. But ever since arriving at UA, it was setback after setback after setback after setback after setback. Bakugo was forced to acknowledge Deku's strength and his weakness, in turn allowing for Bakugo to apologize to Deku and convince him to come back to UA. Because Bakugo is the one person Deku respects more than All Might. And what better person to tell Deku how to defeat the greatest villains of all time than the one guy he deemed as the symbol of victory. So we get to the final war arc, where Bakugo plays a crucial role once again. After Deku is kidnapped by Toga, Bakugo is the main DPS for the fight against Shigaraki. And during this fight, his strongest attack is thwarted by Shigaraki, resulting in a broken arm and him being ragdolled and dragged with a foot. Like, oh my god. Even after facing a world-ending calamity, Bakugo still refuses to lose. He would rather destroy himself than accept defeat at the hands of Shigaraki. Now armed with his awakened quirk, Bakugo studies and strategizes like Midoriya. Bakugo strikes fear into the symbol of fear. That's until Bakugo begins to doubt if he could catch up to Deku. He regrets not getting his All Might card signed right as Shigaraki puts an end to his life. Bakugo's death is more than just the best scene in MHA, but it signifies the death of the old Bakugo. The dickhead brat we all knew at the beginning of the series is dead, and from the ashes arises a new hero. A hero who has learned the error of his ways and has become a worthy successor to All Might's legacy. It's also revealed that Bakugo's revival was not because Edgeshot literally became his heart. That's silly. It's actually because Bakugo's sweat blew up in his bloodstream, jump-starting his heart again, and that's why he's alive. But hearing that his quirk revived him from the dead, he gains a new sense of pride in it. A new sense of pride in himself, as we will all soon bask in the glory of the limitless Katsuki Bakugo. But once Kacchan wakes up from his nap, he locks eyes with Midoriya and without uttering a single word, races over to grab the hand he should have grabbed so many years ago. He will not make that mistake again. And with the help of Midoriya and the millions around the world watching live on television, Bakugo is able to rocket over and save All Might from getting ripped in half. Bakugo once believed that his weakness was the cause for All Might's end, but now his strength is the reason why All Might is alive today. That's when we see All Might use his broken support item to stabilize Bakugo's broken arm. That same support item being named after Bakugo himself. This is a literal passing of the torch moment. All Might giving his legacy and trust in the future to Dynamite. It's beautiful. We see a childlike smile explode across the face of Bakugo because he knows that this is worth more than any All Might signed baseball card can ever be. But the job is not finished. we still have to worry about the old geezer trying to take over the world and crap. Deku and Shigaraki might be the main event, but Bakugo is the people's champion, ready to do the one thing that All Might could never do: make All for One
Rest in peace.
What I love so much about Bakugo versus All for One is that these two were perfect final opponents, because their stories and character arcs cross and mirror each other so much more than you realize. First, this is only their second time interacting in the entire story. The first time was after All Might saved Bakugo in Kamino, and then he fought All for One on live TV. Now we have Bakugo saving All Might in the final war before he fights All for One on live TV. Both of these fights ending with All for One's defeat, but one results in the end of one career and the global recognition of another. Secondly, the entire fight is Bakugo really just chasing All for One, desperately trying to catch up. Throughout the fight, All for One is annoyed that a side character has the nerve to look down on him. How dare this weakling think he can surpass the Demon Lord? Bakugo is constantly doubted, pushed away, until he proves too strong for the Demon Lord to ignore. Sounds familiar? Yeah, this fight is a parallel to how Midoriya kept chasing Bakugo even though he kept getting swatted away, until finally Bakugo had to recognize Midoriya's strength. And third, Bakugo was an absolute badass in this fight. Like, come on, the art for it, first of all, spectacular. Nearly every panel in this entire fight can be used as a poster. Matter of fact, I will do it. And just the way that Bakugo was so intelligent in using his quirk, like, this fight made Explosion my favorite quirk. We have seen Bakugo push this quirk to its limits throughout the entire story, and now we get to see just how great his Explosion quirk is. Both Bakugo and All for One were blessed with strong quirks. They looked down upon others because of this, even being insulted when people weaker than them tried to challenge them. All for One hated Kudo because he dared step to the king even though he didn't have the power to fight. But generations later, Bakugo, also with the same desire to dethrone the king, but this time being armed with the quirk to fight back. Bakugo is not a liar when he said he only needs his quirk to win.
And that's not an insult, that is just a fact of life. Yeah!
Remember how I said Bakugo perfectly represents everything great about the series? Well, in the My Hero lore, there is a thing called the quirk doomsday theory, where each new generation, stronger and stronger quirks will emerge. But All for One knew about that. He knew one day there will be a quirk to rival his own, but he didn't care. And you combine this with somebody who was willing to destroy themselves rather than accept defeat, you have All for One's worst nightmare. Or should I say, his final boss. Bakugo is the quirk doomsday theory. His quirk is busted. His explosive sweat can be detonated at will from a distance. That's mind-blowing. And yes, Bakugo will have the honors of slaying the Demon Lord, but he recognizes he could not have done this alone if not for the efforts of everyone behind him. Even with All for One seconds away from death, Bakugo could fall down right now and still win via timer, but he remains standing 10 toes down until All for One is dead and gone. Because what's a demon king to an explosion god? And the cherry on top is that Bakugo gets to hit his very own All Might standing victory pose, but with a twist. Also, to make that cherry that much sweeter, every time the All Might fist up pose was hit throughout the series, they used the opposite hand, but Bakugo used the same hand that All Might used. So